Zach is back. We are talking about the short form categories at the Emmys. He's joined by myself, Riley Chow, and Luca Giliberti. Uh, we are going to be discussing best short form comedy or drama series, best short form actor, and best short form actress. These are three relatively new categories at the Creative Arts Emmys. The Television Academy is always trying to stay ahead of things, so they introduced these categories a few years ago as they recognized that short form is becoming something that television studios are investing in. So in these categories, you have to be between 2 and 17 minutes per episode. So for the first few years of the category, there were hardly any submissions. So it was a great place for up-and-coming actors to film home movies and go to a bunch of Emmy parties and try to get people to vote for them. In the last year or so, now we have networks like Netflix and FX investing in short form content. So we're going to be seeing a lot more big names, I think, this year. This year is also different because we have the arrival of Quibi, an entire streaming service that makes short form content exclusively. So this year we have 33 series competing for best short form comedy or drama, and 12 of those are from Quibi. So they could fill the entire category twice over. Zach, what do you think about the lay of the land here?
Certainly the person who's going to be looking at these categories the closest will be Jeffrey Katzenberg, because it's going to be a test of whether or not his Quibi experiment works. You have these big name stars starring in these big budget productions that are meant to be sampled on your phone in short bits. This should be tailor-made for these categories. The question is whether or not voters are watching any shows from Quibi. And whether or not they're going to just check off names that they see, like Christoph Waltz or Anna Kendrick, Liam Hemsworth, the people who have been headlining some of their top contenders, or if they're going to check off shows that they know, like, say, the Better Call Saul digital shorts.
Yeah, it's tricky because last year Netflix, they got 2 nominations in the top category. And you know how people use Netflix, they just kind of scroll and they just click on whatever they happen to see. So inevitably they'll find shows that are on Netflix. Whereas Quibi is an entirely new streaming platform that people have to download, that they have to hear about, and then it's just a lot more work. It's not something that people can just find on their own, really. Luca, what do you think about the landscape here?
Well, it's even more difficult to tell because we also have a pandemic going on, which should actually be good news for a streaming platform like Quibi, because people are stuck at home and will want to watch television or will want to watch shows, especially if they can watch it on their phone. So I think it's very difficult to predict whether Quibi will have a big breakthrough here or if it'll just get a few series in. I think that's something we'll really just have to wait for when we see the nominations. But I think there are a few contenders that definitely stand a chance. But what we should probably mention is that the entire Academy votes here in the short form category for series, comedy or drama, which means that it's very possible that we just see them check off familiar names, like Zach already said. When they see a Better Call Saul or a Good Place on the ballot, they might just check it off because they will vote for a Better Call Saul in drama series and the Good Place in comedy series. So I'll be very interested to see which way they go, or if they go both ways.
Yeah, Better Call Saul has submitted the 3rd season of its employee training online shorts. So the first season was hosted by Giancarlo Esposito in character as Gus, training people to work at Los Pollos Hermanos. So that one actually won the category because people thought that was the best short form series of the year. Or maybe they just saw Better Call Saul in the title. And then the 2nd season was nominated for both series and actor for Jonathan Banks, because Jonathan Banks was in character as Mike, I guess, teaching people how to be an employee at Madrigal. But that one was actually disqualified because it was found that the episodes had an average runtime of under 2 minutes. So that was deemed too short for even the short form category, which I guess nobody checked before, before nominations. Even though last year the Academy actually introduced vetting to these categories. They said that because people are making series expressly to get Emmy nominations in these categories, they said, we're going to start vetting all the submissions, and even if you submit, you might not appear on the ballot if you are deemed not to have quality. So they didn't bother checking Better Call Saul last year, and that's how it was nominated. This year, they actually got rid of that vetting rule, so now I guess they're just being more open again. Maybe they're worried about not getting enough submissions. In the actress category, for example, there are only 20 entrants. In actor, there are 24. So each of these categories will have 5 nominees based on the new rules that dictate, the number of nominees that you have based on how many submissions there are. So aside from Better Call Saul, we also have companion series from the likes of The Walking Dead, Star Trek, The Good Place, Nosferatu, and New Amsterdam, which does, have millions of viewers on network TV. So it is possible that people are more familiar with a show like New Amsterdam than any of these new Quibi titles.
You might have just read off the 5 nominees in this category, for all we know. It's interesting because you talk about last year, and that was the year when State of the Union swept these awards. That was a very high-profile Sundance entrant, directed by Stephen Frears, starring Chris O'Dowd and Rosamund Pike, both of whom also won.
Written by Nick Hornby.
Right, yeah, and that was an example of like a high-quality short-form series where I guess they actually watched it, since they didn't have Better Call Saul or as many of these digital companion pieces in the running.
Well, it's tricky because State of the Union was actually not nominated for series last year, but then because Better Call Saul was disqualified, then it was introduced as a nominee since it came sixth in the vote. So when it comes to the winners, then I think quality can win out, as we've been seeing at the Emmys in recent years under this new system. But when it comes to nominations, then it's just check off, whatever's familiar, and, the votes aren't weighted. So for a lot of these shows, or, any shows that actually do have high quality, it might just be harder to get the nomination in the first place.
Right.
Another thing I want to mention is that last year, Jonathan Banks was nominated, initially, and before his nomination was rescinded. But this year, the Emmys have a new rule that you can't submit the same performance across multiple categories. So Rhea Seehorn, for example, she is already submitting in supporting actress, so she can't be nominated for playing herself in these Better Call Saul shorts.
These poor Better Call Saul actors are never
So I admire what Mark Evan Jackson is doing. He's submitting for these shorts instead of submitting as a supporting actor for the main series of The Good Place, where he has never been nominated and was not going to be nominated this year.
Right.
Yeah. I think one we really need to keep an eye out for is Fear the Walking Dead with the Althea tapes, because Fear the Walking Dead has been nominated for its companion pieces here a few times. For Flight 462, it's been nominated for Dead Passage. And last time, I believe, or 2 years ago, The Walking Dead was nominated for The Red Machete. So I think that's something that can definitely get into this category. It's very difficult to see which one of these companion pieces gets in, because there are so many. As Riley already mentioned, we have New Amsterdam, for example. We have Star Trek. There are so many. And it's difficult to predict which Quibi show, for instance, would have the best chance of getting in. What I currently have is The Stranger, which is from Veena Sud, who is a previous Emmy nominee for The Killing in Best Drama Writing. I think of all Quibi shows, this one was one of the best received. It has a very high Rotten Tomatoes score. I think if people are aware of who is that Venus Suda is attached, I think that could definitely help it. And I still think royalties can get in because there are a lot of names attached. We have Darren Criss in the lead role with Kether Donahue, and there are a slew of guest stars, including Mark Hamill, and then we have recurring people like John Stamos in the show. And it's something that's very light, and maybe that's something voters would gravitate toward, given the circumstances right now.
There's one Quibi show that could benefit from some name recognition, and that's their reboot of Reno 911. Now, that's a show that never got any Emmy nominations, but it is a known quantity. And so perhaps if voters just see that on the ballot, they'll say to themselves, hey, that was a show that I really liked. I'll vote for that again. So don't be surprised if you see that pop up.
Yeah, I feel like Reno 911 actually has a better chance than many of the shows that Quibi is actually campaigning. Because Quibi has 12 shows on the ballot, but they're only campaigning 6 of them. If you go to the Quibi for your consideration site, they pretend that they only have 6 comedies or dramas, and Reno 911 is not one of them. So it's unclear whether the Reno 911 actors submitted themselves or whether Quibi submitted them and just isn't promoting them. But yeah, it's tricky because Reno 911 was on, like over 10 years ago. So I'm not sure how much residual love there still is for it. And if people see it on the ballot, are they going to be confused? Because I thought that show was on, over 10 years ago. How long has 2020 been? Just all that kind of stuff. Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Let's see. Okay, so I would say that Quibi's big contenders are Most Dangerous Game, The Stranger, and Dummy. These are the 3 shows that they also put on YouTube, so you can watch the first episode for free. You can watch it in portrait or landscape mode. So these ones are being most widely sampled by the public. Their trailers are also the most watched of any of these Quibi shows. And they seem to have gotten, okay receptions. So that's something, I guess. The only one that I'm actually predicting is Most Dangerous Game, because I'm filling the rest of the category with all these companion pieces. So I've got the Better Call Saul companion piece, Star Trek's Short Treks, The Good Place, and Fear the Walking Dead. And Star Trek, they didn't submit their short form companion piece Short Treks previously, but it has been nominated by the Costume Designers Guild, and it's also won at the Sound Editors Guild. So it seems like the industry is actually responding to the show.
Yeah.
I'm also predicting it for actor for Ensign Mount, actually, maybe I am. I think he's about 5th or 6th, but he's actually a regular character on the main series, Star Trek Discovery, which just didn't air this year. So he didn't have to decide whether he'd submit for one show or the other.
Speaking about those 3 Quibi shows that you think have the best chance, I think that the fact that they have the most high-profile performers attached to them, Christoph Waltz and Liam Hemsworth and Anna Kendrick, Dane Dehaan, Micah Monroe, you could possibly see those people get nominated in short-form performer just because they are such big names. Christoph Waltz, Academy Award winner, and could just possibly waltz his way to an Emmy win with no competition. But it'll be interesting. I mean, if they really are watching these shows, because there's a lot of high quality production value that went into the making of them, whether or not that'll pay off with nominations, because if they're not watching them, then they might not know to vote for them.
Yeah, it's great how we're having this discussion, and quality is so rarely factoring into what we're actually predicting.
Right. Yeah. We know that they barely watch the TV shows that are nominated in drama and comedy and limited. So, I mean, they should be able to finish these in like a day, whether or not they're even watching them.
And just to name two other projects with big names attached, we have Survive, which has Sophie Turner, who is, everyone knows her from Game of Thrones. She just received her first Emmy nomination last year for Game of Thrones. And then we also have Flipped, which has Will Forte, who is also a past Emmy nominee, and Caitlin Olsen. So these are two other projects that I think could pop up, especially in the acting races.
Okay, Luca, what are you predicting in the actor category, or who?
So in the actor category, I still have Darren Criss for royalties because he's Darren Criss, because he'll be on the ballot for Hollywood this year as well for producing it and as a supporting actor. He just won an Emmy 2 years ago for the assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story. I think he's very well liked. He was also nominated a few years ago for Glee in music and lyrics, for which he will also be eligible for royalties. And he gets to, even though we've seen his comedic and musical chops on Glee, for instance, he gets to be a bit goofy here, which, might help since we've never really seen that from him. I do have Christoph Waltz because he's Christoph Waltz. I have Mark Evan Jackson for The Good Place Presents The Selection, because as you said, he's been on The Good Place. Voters might know him. He's been on so many other shows recently. He's appeared in Dead to Me, in Curb Your Enthusiasm, in Glow. So he's been in so many shows in the last few years. So people might just check him off. Then I have Dane Dehaan for The Stranger. I think if The Stranger has a chance of getting into series, he might be able to get in here. And for my last slot, I haven't really decided, but I think Liam Hemsworth has a very good chance, since Riley, as you mentioned, The Most Dangerous Game might actually fare pretty well overall.
Yeah, I think both of them are pretty safe, Christoph Waltz
Yeah.
and Liam Hemsworth in this category. I also have Mark Evan Jackson and Dane DeHaan. And then I also have Thomas Lennon for Reno 911, since he is the creator, star, writer, producer, all that kind of stuff. I think that he'll get a lot of goodwill from all those hats that he wears. But I'm also considering Anson Mount for Star Trek short treks. He was actually only in 3 episodes of this season of short treks, but that is all you need to be eligible. Over in actress, I've got Anna Kendrick for Dummy, Micah Monroe for The Stranger, Carrie Kenny Silver for Reno 911. She's in the same boat as Thomas Lennon. Then I've got Sophie Turner for Survive, and Jasmine Cephas Jones for #Free Ray Sean. I'm also considering Meredith Thomas for Cake. Meredith Thomas, the last couple of years, has organized these big underground for your consideration showcases where she hosts a whole bunch of people who are independently submitting for the Emmys. And then this has resulted in nominations for people, especially in these categories. So I feel like she is someone who is well connected in kind of the underground of the industry. She's submitting for Cake, which I'm not sure how it's eligible in these categories. Cake is a half-hour anthology show on FX, so it differs from a lot of these other contenders in that you can actually watch the show on TV as opposed to just on the internet, on your phone or on your computer or whatnot. But Cake is an anthology series, so it's got whole bunch of different sketches, kind of like Saturday Night Live. So what FX is doing is they're splitting up the different segments and they're submitting them as different series, which would, I don't see how that's different from SNL submitting Weekend Update as a short form series, or digital shorts, or whatever else is on SNL these days. But I guess the Academy is allowing it. I don't think it's going to result in any nominations anyway.
Yeah, I think you guys are pretty much on the money with your acting predictions. I would also say, there's people on the ballot like Harry Shearer in The Salon, and Lawrence Fishburne for #Free Ray Sean. I mean, those are both previous Emmy contenders who could show back up again. Even somebody like a Perry Gilpin for Old Guy, never nominated for Frasier, but perhaps nominated for this. Sometimes these people who have been on some of their favorite series, we saw Christina Pickles win one of these prizes, I think it was 2 years ago. There was a woman, never won for St. Elsewhere, never won for Friends, wins for a short form series. Ed Begley Jr. was nominated last year for something. But the point being, these people who've been on TV for 30, 40 years, this is sometimes a good place for them to get nominated and perhaps even win their first Emmys.
Right. I feel like all the names have pretty much been mentioned, but I'll just throw in Caitlin Olsen for Flipped and Nicole Richie for Nikki Fresh, which, Riley, you've written about that show, so maybe you have further insight, but I think otherwise we've mentioned all the contenders. I mean, there aren't so many contenders on the ballot, as Riley already mentioned. We have 20 people in the actress category, so they're going to nominate 1/4. So it's easier to just go with the biggest names in this case.
Yeah, Zach mentioned a lot of established actors who are submitting for independent shows. I think we saw that a lot more a couple years ago. We saw it a little bit last year, and I think this year we might not see it at all, where previously nominations would be credited to Vimeo or YouTube or Facebook. And it's not like, Vimeo or Facebook were actually making these shows. Mm-hmm. I think it's just, one of those things where technically, anything you put on there, they own. And that is where you would be able to stream these shows. But then last year over in the actress category, we only saw Sundance, Comedy Central, and Netflix nominated. So I think this year we'll probably see something similar, except no Netflix, of course, because they've decided to abandon the short form categories this year, at least. You mentioned Nikki Fresh. So, it's too late, but hopefully Emmy voters voted for that because that show is hilarious. I found Quibi's content somewhat frustrating, I guess. I actually watched many of their shows to completion, and I was much more satisfied by the comedies because the sketch comedy format is something that has existed in, quick bites for all of television history, really. Whereas breaking up a drama or essentially an hour-and-a-half movie into these 6-minute segments sometimes leaves you wanting more, or maybe just better writing. I'd also like to spotlight Dummy with Anna Kendrick, because that show I feel like is really taking advantage of the Quibi format of watching things on your phone. All these other shows, what they did was they filmed their show normally, and then it seems like they just chopped off the sides. So you're watching something that's just really thin, and you can't really tell what's going on if you hold up your phone as you normally do. You kind of have to flip it to get a decent viewing experience. Whereas Dummy, what they've done is they have shot, it's framed differently. So in the portrait version, the screen actually extends higher. So they're able to use new space to give information to viewers. So it is much more designed for the format that it's being presented in. I think that's admirable. And that's really what these short form categories are about. They're about recognizing kind of the future of the medium. Nikki Fresh, what they would do is they would sometimes have a split screen. So whatever's going on over here would just be on top, and then there'd be a line, and then whatever's happening over here is on the bottom. In Reno 911, the show was essentially cropped like this the entire time, and then occasionally there would be a little graphic that says rotate, and that's the time where they actually put the effort in to film something different.
It would be nice if, in the future, this could lead to a lot of creativity. You mentioned earlier about how these short form categories were just a way for people to submit home movies they had made of themselves on Facebook or Vimeo, or for something like The Walking Dead or Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. to tack on to its nominations tally by having a whole different show. But what was really encouraging about State of the Union winning last year was that this was a show that was of quality and took advantage of the short form format to tell a smaller scale story that, you know, might have been more frustrating to watch if it was you know, a regular 1 hour drama. But this way it was able to tell something a lot more compactly. So it would be nice if in the future these networks could try to really make this into an art form, the way that, you know, we have great short films at the Academy Awards. It'd be nice to have great short form series at the Emmys.
Yeah, I do find that I'm getting increasingly surprised by the Emmys and their good choices, because I mean, the short form series that swept the year before last year was James Corden's Next James Corden. That won short form series, and then James Corden won for playing James Corden in James Corden's Next James Corden in the actor category. And what that show was the, you know, just another companion piece, in this case for the Late Late Show. And that show was exclusively on Snapchat.
Mm-hmm. So networks, please. I mean, they don't take that long to film, I suspect.
Exactly.
They're only like maybe 10-minute long episodes, perhaps. You know, put some creativity into this, right? Like find some good stories to tell in small segments.